It's not actually cancelled, I just thought that would be a funny thumbnail. Sorry. Where is Catching Up Episode 2? Has been the question filling my comment section for the past few months, and I can't really blame anyone for asking. I know I've just been sharing small clips here and there for a while, as well as announcing that it would release in a month. 2 months ago. Gotta explain some things, but if you're working on any kind of project, please let me give you some very obvious advice. Even if you assume you can get it out earlier than expected, don't tell people that. So, to cut to the chase, when will Catching Up Episode 2 release? Before Christmas. Which is annoying because that release date is early, considering the Kickstarter claimed we would release it early 2026. But because I was stupid and assumed I could do it quicker, now it comes off like it's been delayed or something. My bad. In all honesty, we could have made that October release date, but unfortunately this past year of production has been filled with many ups and many downs. Also, if you don't care about catching up and just want more regular videos from me, then don't worry, I have a big ranking video coming out in December as well. It'll be a fun one, so I'm hoping you all enjoy it. This cartoon has been taking up all of my time in the past year, so I apologize if the videos this year have been more scarce. I definitely gotta find a better balance between the two. But hey! To make it up for my fuck-up on announcing things way too early, enjoy this very short sneak peek from the start of Episode 2.
Listen to Roy more.
It's that girl again. I wonder if she remembers me. Oh, she's waving at me. That's gotta be a good thing, right? Is that a good thing?
Hope you liked that small clip. I know there's not a lot of context for what's going on, but we have like that entire sequence done except for one big shot that's just sandwiched between everything. So we would rather wait till that part's done before sharing more. So, what's been going on with production? Well, I think some of this information will be great for any aspiring artists who want to create their own show. Here are a lot of things to keep in mind. First of all, let's start with the Kickstarter. I had started Catching Up back in 2020 and didn't get it done until 2024. By the end of production, I was incredibly burnt out. I think you could tell in that video I uploaded after it released. And I also wasn't completely happy with the finished product. I thought I would release it, it would get 100k if I was lucky, people would say it sucked, and I would move on. I did not expect it to be sitting at nearly 4 million views within just over a year, with a 97.5 positive like-to-dislike ratio. I was completely taken aback by the positive reception, and the people asking when there would be more because it was honestly something I hadn't really considered. Because of that, and wanting to strike while the iron was hot, Veronica and I sat down and put together that entire Kickstarter within 6 days. That's why parts of it look pretty scuffed, like the reward section having all these skewed-ass thumbnails. I had made them at what I assumed was a standard resolution, only to upload them to Kickstarter and see that some other resolution as their fucking BS or whatever. And we had like a million other things to sort out, so I just kept it the way it was. Not the smartest move, but at the time, we were scrambling. That's not to say there was no thought put into the Kickstarter. If anything, we wanted to make sure we set our goals as low as possible. Which is why we avoided offering any major rewards that would require a bunch of different manufacturers. Veronica actually contacted a few companies about making vinyl figures for the Kickstarter, but we just didn't have the time to make the molds. It would have also cost a couple grand to make them, and we didn't want to add any unnecessary costs to the goal. I wouldn't want a Kickstarter campaign where half of our money goes into fulfilling rewards. That sounds like a nightmare. Not that it mattered, right? We more than made our goal with 58k out of the 40 we needed. Right? Wrong. This is where reality set in, and we had to realize that things weren't as cut and dry as that. See, we didn't take a couple of things into account with the way Kickstarter handled the money. To cut to the chase, you want to know how much of that 58k we ended up actually getting at the end of the campaign? 40. Just barely enough to make the actual cartoon. How is that possible? Where did that 18 grand go? I'm gonna tell you. First of all, I just assumed that when you donated money to a Kickstarter, that was it. It's out of your bank once the campaign is successful, and that's that.
No.
In fact, the person giving you the money can very easily just not pay it, leaving the creator to just get fucked. The number on your page doesn't go down either. It still says we made 58k, but quite a bit of that ended up not going through. Namely, one of our 8k backers and one of our 3k backers ended up not giving the money in the end. Which is fine. They don't have to give me their money. But I later find out one of these people also did the exact same thing to another cartoon Kickstarter running at the exact same time. I've spoke to this person and I genuinely don't believe there was any malicious intent behind this. I think they just wanted to be the person who gave more than anyone else without actually having the money to back it up. Again, I understand and don't hold anything against them. But even still, that put us down immediately from our 58k to around 47. And that's not to even talk about Kickstarter's cut. 5% fee goes to Kickstarter as well as a 3 to 5% processing fee. So there's another 10% of our budget gone. 58k is now 42. And then you got taxes! We foolishly made this campaign towards the end of the year, with production on the cartoon not starting until 2025, which means I gotta add this 42k to my income for the year. Oh boy! In this case, I actually don't know how much of this specifically took from our budget, and also I get a pretty nice deductible next year at least. But the point is, we ended up having just under the budget we needed to make the actual cartoon, and so I ended up having to put some of my own money into the project anyway. Which I'm happy to do, I just want to make something good at the end of the day, and if that means putting some of that flexi spot money into this, then I don't care. Also, I'm sure some of yous are sitting there saying to yourselves, no shit, asshole. Of course you had to consider this stuff. And I kinda did, but I was just so preoccupied on getting the Kickstarter done that I figured I would just deal with those problems when they came up. At the end of the day, I'm not annoyed about any of this because it's nothing I didn't know going in, and the cartoon is pretty much done, so who cares? Who cares at this point? But if you, out there, want to start an indie cartoon Kickstarter, first of all, don't. Please just see if you can make it on your own first before being responsible for other people's money and time, because that adds a whole other level of stress to things you might not be ready for. But at the very least, consider this stuff. Because I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I can put some of my own money into this. But if I didn't have the means to do that, the project would have had to have been severely delayed with a cut to its overall quality. Which I don't want, you don't want, so please, I beg you, I see it all the time, do not make a Kickstarter unless you are prepared to deliver. Also, I'm sure this is probably TMI or something, just post the cartoon. But the way I look at it, you guys trusted me with your hard-earned money, so the least I can do is be upfront and honest about what happened. I'm really happy with how the cartoon's been coming out. I hope you'll like it. I'm just stoked that there was no actual delays and we got it out when we said we would. Anyway, back to the fun cartoon talk. This is where the real problems start. So something Veronica and I wanted to ensure for this production was that we did as much of the work ourselves as humanly possible. Not only did that allow for us to make a cartoon for a budget as low as we had, but I also think it's way too common for Kickstarter projects to get carried away with hiring 1 million people, not realizing how quickly that money goes, and how much of that work they could have just done themselves. After the Kickstarter ended in October, we took the rest of the year off to move and get settled in, but once January rolled around, we immediately got to work on boarding episode 2. The pilot was script-driven, meaning I sat down and started with a script and translated that script into storyboards. But Veronica and I work very well off the cuff with each other, especially when just being able to doodle, and so we decided we wanted to go with board-driven this time around, getting all our ideas out on paper while following a loose structure. Not everyone likes developing stories like that, but we find it to be a much better way of conveying and fleshing out our ideas. I feel like the different approach is definitely evident when watching the finished episode. Veronica did new model sheets for old and existing characters. I put together the animatic with temp audio where I voice everyone. Made concept art for the background artists, prop artists. Veronica is doing a majority of the animation notes alongside me, and I'm also currently compositing the entire cartoon myself. It's totaling to 240 shots currently. That's way too many. That already saved us so much money though, which really just went to background artists, rig artists, and animators. We also had Rebecca Kartzmark help us with production management for a few months, as well as animating some shots herself, including an entire 1-minute promo animation which should be coming out a few days before the actual cartoon. Unfortunately, this is where our second set of issues arose. See, I had mentioned before that we were moving at the end of 2024. We had everything we owned taken away from our house by a moving company in November of 2024, with the expectation of receiving it in December 2024. You want to know when we received our belongings? August of 2025. That is no joke. It took these bozos 10 months to get us our items, one of which was Veronica's computer, which she was going to use to, storyboard the entire cartoon. This left us in a really awkward position, but thankfully one of our storyboard artists who worked on the pilot was able to come back and board the first third of the cartoon, which we were eternally grateful for. But again, that was something that had to come out of the budget, which we were initially not counting on. Either way, this also meant Veronica had to board like 10 minutes of the cartoon on her iPad on Procreate, which is nowhere near as efficient as something like Storyboard Pro. Also, because we were banking on our belongings coming way sooner than they did, we held off on pre-production for way too long. Our mindset was, well, as soon as our stuff comes, we can start in the model sheets, character designs, concept art, refined boards, because these, again, bozos, kept telling us we'd be getting it any day now. Because of that, we were way behind in having our rigs done, as well as backgrounds. So, it's like June. We barely have half the backgrounds done, we don't have any character rigs we can animate, and we've just hired Rebecca with no work to give her because nothing is ready. It was a shit show, one I'm thankful we came out of without any delays. But it meant when starting animation, we had to be very selective about what shots could be animated, either because we didn't have a rig or a variant or whatever. For a good month or so, the only rig we had finished was Clay's. So great, we'll just start on all the shots where it's only Clay on screen. But weird! Clay gets hit by a fucking car in the first minute and has a cast on the rest of the episode. Okay, we gotta wait now on the Clay cast variant. I guess we'll start on all the Clay shots, but only when he's shown from the torso up? It was this kind of monotonous workaround for a majority of the middle period in production. All because these boza! Another big hang-up for the cartoon was deadlines. See, a majority of our animation team are freelancers, meaning they're doing catching up as a side gig, in between other stuff or their actual job. They are not obligated to give us any of their free time, so I'm extremely grateful they would want to work on the cartoon. We ended up with way more animator submissions than we knew what to do with, so if you reached out, I apologize if I didn't get back. Maybe if we do episode 3, I don't know. However, because this wasn't like the first episode, where we had no set release date, where I never gave anyone any deadlines, where I completely worked on a get-it-done-whenever mentality, I had to realize that wasn't going to fly this time around. On the first episode, there were so many instances where I would be waiting like 3 months for a single shot, and at that point, none of us are really getting anything out of this exchange. And so there were a couple times during production for the second episode where we could see the light at the end of the tunnel, aka this shit being done. Every animator has agreed to a set amount of shots by a certain deadline, and then, like 3 days before, I'll reach out and be like, hey, deadline's getting close, do you think we can get those shots by then? And then they're like, well, maybe not, actually, can you give those to someone else? And you have like 5 people doing that in one day, and suddenly it feels like the end of the fucking world. I want to clarify too, in some instances this was on me and Veronica entirely. Sometimes we'd have to deal with other responsibilities going on in our lives. We unfortunately had to face 2 deaths in the family during production, which meant there were times where we just couldn't get notes over in a timely manner, delaying everything. Also, again, most of these animators are doing this in their free time, so they're not obligated to give us anything if they don't want to. And I hope you guys see what we've been getting back so far has completely blown the pilot out of the water. I think it's improved in almost every aspect. But it still resulted in scenarios where we had to scramble to find someone who could jump in and pick up some shots we assumed were already taken care of. That's probably the main thing that kept us from reaching that October release date like I had hoped. Again, just an unfortunate set of circumstances. Also, none of this is to even mention that me nor Veronica get any kind of compensation for any of this. We're doing it all for free, which we don't mind. We both like just making something fun, even if a lot of the time it isn't very fun to work on. But it means there were also times where I had to prioritize my own channel and put catching up on the back burner for a bit, or Veronica had to work on commissions and other art. At the end of the day, I'm just really glad that we set realistic expectations for ourselves, and didn't presume we could get the episode done by like June or something. The first catching up episode was a great learning experience for what goes into making a cartoon from every point of view, but episode 2 was a great learning experience for what goes into an actual production with a schedule and a budget. I'm aware this probably doesn't come off the same to you as it does to me since none of you have actually, seen the cartoon. I wouldn't blame some of you for thinking it's pointless to talk about this until the thing is out, but I want to make a video shortly after the second episode's release where we talk about the more fun aspects of making it. And I hope this doesn't come off too much like working on this was some kind of miserable experience, because it was the opposite. Sure, it was hard and there were things I wish went differently, but unlike the pilot, I'm only leaving this one more eager to get started on the next. Speaking of, Episode 3? Is there any idea for it? Yes. Do we want to make it? Yes. Are we going to make it? It depends. Over the course of making episode 2, Veronica and I have had many discussions about what episode 3 would be. We were really torn between 3 different ideas, all of which we want to make someday. But I think we've settled in on which one would fit better as the next episode. I don't want to talk about it too much, but basically there's this new character we really want to introduce. We can't share too much about him. We're in talks right now to get Robert Capron, aka Riley Jefferson, to do the voice for him. And that idea alone just has us ecstatic to work on it. No, I say it depends because it all comes down to one thing. You know what it is, I know what it is, the budget, aka the money. Let's not peddle around it. That's what's going to set the future of catching up, whether or not the interest is there for us to make more. Also, at the same time, I do not want to make another Kickstarter. One, because dealing with that shit is a nightmare, but also because I don't want to have to make a new Kickstarter for every episode we want to fund. But a bunch of people have been asking me in comments or in Twitter or at conventions if we plan on making episode 3, and so I figure it's better to be upfront about how it'll happen because at the end of the day, I want to make more, Veronica wants to make more, and hopefully you want to see more. So currently, our plan is to follow up the release of episode 2 with a Patreon account for catching up. This way we can get a set amount monthly to continue working on the project, and we don't have to spend unneeded time and money setting up a campaign and handling rewards for the rest of the time, when we could already have those built into a set Patreon account. Our goal with this Patreon account is to speed up production. Obviously, there are other factors to add into this, like ad revenue and merchandise sales. By the way, we have 2 plushes launching with the episode, so if you don't want to support through Patreon, you can always just get a plush or something, I don't know. But right now, it seems like if we wanted to get an episode of Catching Up done every 6 to 8 months, we'd need to be making around $3,000 a month on Patreon. That combined with merch sales and ad revenue would be enough to get another 11-minute episode done within that time. Especially given all we've learned through working on this current episode. Also considering we have the permanent character rigs now, those took like 2 months to make. If we end up making more than $3,000 a month, that will only go towards working on multiple episodes at the same time, to ensure you guys don't have to wait like 8 months between every episode. For example, if we were making $6,000 a month, we could work on 2 episodes at the same time. There's also the possibility that we don't make $3,000 a month. And in that case, we would still like to pursue catching up, possibly just in a shorter format. Either 5-minute episodes or trying our hand at something like a graphic novel. Right now, though, that's the plan for the future of catching up. I really think you guys will enjoy this next episode, especially if you liked the first. And all we want to do is continue making it, so if the support is there, we want nothing more than to continue learning and finding ways to speed up production. We'd be offering some rewards on the Patreon, like access to our current Kickstarter backer server, which we'd probably reformat to just be a general donator server. As well as us thinking about shipping out these little post-it note doodles to patrons. We made like 1 million of these over our time board in episode 2, varying wildly in terms of quality and clarity, but I think they're a fun little thing to give out. Let me know what you guys think of this plan, if you'd be willing to support a Patreon for catching up, to ensure more episodes get made. And I figured I'd spend some time right now answering some questions that Veronica and I got for this episode. I'll ignore any spoiler-related questions for after the episode comes out. There was a question about this character from the pilot. She has a much larger role in episode 2, so we had to revise her design a bit. And then revised that design again. Seems like a lot of people think we went back to the old design when, in reality, we just applied more design elements from the old into the new. I really like her current design. Veronica and I can't believe we were actually going to go through with this tentacle-haired one. The Kickstarter backers gave us a lot of great feedback that got us to where we are with her today. Again, if you want to become a Patreon, maybe you'll get some input on future episodes. Who knows? This leads into the next question where we're asked were there any issues when redoing something from the pilot, in which all that's been redone really are Rob and Clay. It's something I think is only super evident when it's pointed out to you, but if you compare Rob and Clay from episode 2 to the first, they look very different. We changed Clay's colors to add more contrast, as well as play around with his brow a lot more to add to his expressions. He also has a teal now. Ignore what I said last catching up video where I said God came down from the heavens and swiped it. I'm stupid. We also gave Rob's dad a major redesign for no other reason than his old one was just a modified Rob. I think it works a lot better now. Someone asked if Toby will show up, which I'm sure like a 99% of you don't know who that is. But it was this character that Veronica designed for the show. He's this homeless guy that's Rob's best friend. We actually had an entire scene with him in episode 2 that we had to cut out for time. We showed the episode to a lot of people in the animatic stage, when we were still looking to cut down a couple minutes, and everyone told us Toby was funny but added nothing to the plot. But we really want to do something with Toby. You know, we considered a Christmas ad for the plush, but now it's looking like the episode will come out in December anyway, so that's out of the question. I was also trying really hard to get Billy West to play Toby, but by the time we actually had to commit to that, we decided to cut the scene. Okay, final question, because a lot of these I want to save for later. Also, drop any other questions below and I'll answer them. But why did we cast Scott the Woz as Roy? And the answer is, we liked his voice and thought it would be funny. I was talking with Scott around that time about doing a collab on his Scott Stash channel, and I was also showing our friends Billy and Savannah Bandy's Universe for the first time. I genuinely like Bandy's Universe, by the way, huge Bandy Universe fans over here. But he had Scott at the end of his cartoon as the villain, and we were sitting there like, damn, okay, we kind of want Scott the Woz is Roy. So I asked him, and he said yes. It's really that simple. For most of our characters, Veronica and I consider how their normal talking voice sounds because I'd rather get someone natural than someone putting on a performance. You know, like, hey, I'm Deku. That's off. Like, Clay is just Michael Kovac doing his normal voice. Rob doesn't sound that different from Mackenzie. And Roy is just Scott's voice, because I think his voice works well for the character. There's a lot of funny stories when it came to recording for Roy, so I look forward to sharing those soon. But yeah, that's about it. Catching Up episode 2 comes out next month, for real this time. Ranking video next month for those who don't care about catching up. Why are you still watching? And I guess the conclusion to all this is, don't make a Kickstarter unless you know what you're doing, because that shit's hard as fuck.